Hello and welcome to Reef Talk. I'm Scott Anderson with Mile High Reefers. I'm here with Steve Rotter of Rotter 2 Reef, and our special guest today is Darren DeGraw from Northwest Marine 62.
Hi
So
guys.
today's topic is on keeping tangs. Um, I, we kind of picked this because, as far as the three of us go, that's definitely our favorite fish to keep.
Hmm.
And I know I've been on a tang kick lately. Steve's got more tangs than can even fit in a 125.
And the blue tang will go in there once it matures as well. So we're going to be hitting 8 tangs in a 125-gallon tank. Break the
Great.
rules, whatever.
And then every time I get excited because I buy a fish, I get a laundry list from Darren of all the stuff he just bought. It's usually 8 or 10 fish coming down. So tangs sound like a fun one to talk about today. So to start with, I know we talked about this the other day with the dory fish, but tangs are kind of your intermediate fish to keep. It's not your easiest fish to keep, so probably not the first fish you should buy for your tank if you're new to reef keeping. So we'll just put that right off the bat that they're a little more difficult, and a lot of that comes down to the risk of ick and marine velvet. And I know you guys are kind of ick and marine to velvet off today out on that one, so just know that it's a big risk. They need quarantine, and we'll skip that subject for the rest of this video, but just know they are parasite magnets. So, I think maybe the best part is just to kind of talk about what kind of tangs are out there, how you keep multiples together, and stuff like that. And I think let's start with Steve. Tell us how you have so many tangs in such a small tank, because what you're doing is really impressive.
I thought you were going to say what you're doing is really wrong.
No, 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 no. But if you look at
Because it kind of is.
but when you look at your videos of your tank, they
Right,
really are doing well in what's a relatively small tank.
right.
And
It's a 125-gallon, 6 feet long. Yeah. Right. Compared to yours, you got the 210.
or Darren's monster.
Yeah. What,
That
300? Soon to
Yeah, I've
be.
got a 180 and a 300.
Yes. So, well, you know what? So what was the question?
so how are you keeping so many tangs in a small tank? Well, relatively small. I mean, you have the right size tank for tangs. You
Right.
got a 6 foot tank, but you've got what, 7 tangs in there right now?
Yeah, and two of them are large, very large. Um, how am I doing it? I don't know. It just happens. One of the key things is just making sure those guys are happy. I do a weekly water change of 10 gallons. And I just pushed it up, and that was fine. And I just pushed it up to 15 gallons last week. So I do a weekly water change of 15 gallons. And where I do the water change from is important because I want to get rid of as many nitrates as I can. So to stress the fish out a little less and to get more nitrates out during that water change, I'll siphon out all the water from my sump, and you're vacuuming up all the crap and uneaten food and stuff from there. So that's good. That removes that, and then I'm replacing with fresh salt water directly into the sump. So they don't get as stressed out because the water's not coming in where they're at. Also, to get rid of nitrates, what I started doing is siphoning out the water with a little tiny pump, with a hose to a bucket. Um, the overflows, because a lot of food and garbage settles to the bottom of the overflows, and I have two, one on each side of the tank. I'll vacuum that out. It does wonders. And then I'll just, of course, you know, fill it back in the sump, turn the pumps on, and as they're pumping through, the water's going through. Um, I think I may want to start vacuuming the sand less. I'm going to try this as an experiment, but I vacuum my sand with a siphon. I got a sand sifting star, so he should help stir up the sand and loosen all the uneaten food and stuff so they can go through the filtration system. As far as their personalities, I kind of got lucky because they all get along really well. And when you add fish to a tank, tangs especially, you really should add the yellow tang last. My yellow tang was in before I added the Nassau tang and the sailfin tang. And when I put the sailfin tang in on a quarantine, the yellow tang did not like it one bit at all. So I was kind of thinking I may need to rehome the sailfin. But after about 2 days, completely peaceful. And like you said, Scott, all my guys, they get along and there's a lot in there. It's really neat because they actually all school together. We've got these 7 or 8 tangs schooling together. Now, I do feel bad for them once in a while. It is a 125-gallon tank. They're not crammed.
Right.
Amazingly enough, there's enough room for all of them with some to spare. And it's 6 feet long, so there's plenty enough swimming room. I would love to have. Um, and Ed from Ed's Tank Extreme was asking last night during the live show, when am I going to get a larger tank? I don't know. I'm kind of thinking I might not. But if I do, it'll be a year or two, a 240, so I get the 8 foot long.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, to put those guys in. But then unfortunately, I'll have to keep them in the basement. But you know what? I got lucky. Their personalities are all great because, as we've said, you want to keep certain fish with certain fish and don't combine them. But in the end, you might get lucky because it might come down to the fish. Now, I did have a starry blenny in the tank, and he didn't want anything. He was killing off my gobies, so I had to rehome him to the 45-gallon. So that's where he lives. He's no longer in the 125. My sand sifter goby was in hiding for 4 months. He would never come out. I might see his head poke out from under a rock, maybe once every 3 weeks. A lot of times I thought he was a goner. As soon as I took that starry blenny out, he was doing his job sifting stand that night. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, feed them well. Feed them nori. They're vegetarians. So I'll put a huge stalk or two of bok choy, rubber banded to a PVC small 1-inch pipe, only this long, in the tank daily, and they wait for it, and they all go to town on it. So if you keep them fed, you'll keep them happy. And tangs are notorious for being dirty. So you do want to vacuum the sand. You want to have a good filtration system. Any mechanical filtration that you use, you want to make sure you clean it like every 3 days. You have to, or else those nitrates are going to multiply. That's all I can think of right now. I had a couple other things, but I'll let you guys take over. I got lucky. My guys all get along really well. I introduced them slowly over time, and I monitored the first day or two for any aggression. Luckily, they're all very nice to each other.
So you're really focusing on the length of the tank when you bought it to make sure it was long enough. You were very tang specific when you purchased your tank because you know that you're getting water quality is something you mentioned there. I think is huge, and then feeding
Yeah,
it. Feeding is incredibly important with these guys to manage the aggression.
definitely. Yeah.
Darren, I know you keep buying tangs. How do you decide which tangs you're buying?
Um, Actually, I really don't. Whatever really grabbed me. I when I first started, I did have a Fowlery tang, and he didn't make it in quarantine. But I've kind of evolved a little bit. A lot of the research I've done, made a lot of mistakes as a typical newbie. I've been in saltwater now for a year next month, so I would consider myself a newbie still. But I was into freshwater fish for 20 years, so your husbandry skills,
Right.
come into play. It's just a different type of fish. You're dealing with an ecosystem, but that's one fish I would like to get. It's a beautiful tang. But when I've added tangs in my tank, I've added them at nighttime. I did that with my cichlids. And then what I used to do with my cichlids is I would rearrange the aquascaping, but you can't really do that on a saltwater tank because you're dealing with a bunch of rock. So what I would do is I've been introducing my fish at nighttime. It's a lot easier on the incoming fish. And then I got some tail slapping on a couple of my tangs when I did introduce them, but they get along great, like Steve was saying. I've just got 4 of them in my 300 right now. And I've got a trio of them in my 180, and as you saw in my last video. and they get along great. So I would like to get some more zebra somas, maybe another purple tang in my 300, as well as maybe a couple of yellow tangs, and a Fowlery tangs on my want list too. That will definitely go in my 300.
Nice.
I think, like Steve was saying, it comes down to nutrition. You saw my video when I was feeding Nori, and I can't even get my hand in the tank. They go nuts over that. So I don't know if you guys were feeding this, but I was using a product and I can't find it anymore. It's made by a company called New Era. It's an algae grazer ring. It's about this big, and it's 3 types of seaweed compressed. And
Right.
You
I
used
think
to use that, didn't you, Steve?
Yeah, I
think
still do.
Yeah, I think-
They changed the name. They were bought out by another company. Yeah, the name went out of business, and then they changed their name. I cannot remember what. They're going under another name now. They were going bankrupt, and someone bought them out, so they changed the name. I'll have to find out. But yeah, those are awesome. My fish.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. My fish really like that, and I feed a variety of foods to my fish and my tangs. I use Rod's food. I feed them the nori, mysis
Food is a
shrimp.
big one. Yep.
And what I'm going to start doing is my local reef store is I ask for some PE mysis shrimp. The shrimp, basically they're gut loaded with brine. Now these mysis shrimp by the company called PE, they're out of Canada and they're freshwater, so a little bit better nutrient. But I'm feeding them the mysis shrimp right now, and I feed them herbivore food to my tangs as well. So I try to give them a different selection. I feed a spirulina brine, and then I use a Celcon on my food about 3 times a week, and it really helps to bolster their immune system.
I've also noticed that the fish just love the Celcon. They just go crazy when you add the Celcon to it.
Yeah, Cyber Aquarius turned me on to that, and it's been around for a while, but it's got amino acids in it. And what I do is I'll take the cube food and I'll turn it upside down, and I'll go ahead and drop the Celcon in there, so it kind of creates a little cavity. Let it sit in there for about 10 minutes. Then I'll add some RO water to break it down, and then I feed it. That way the Celcon's permeated into the food, and my fish really like that.
I also like to soak my pellets in the Celcon because it's a dry food. It does a nice job absorbing the Celcon, and the fish just seem to love that.
Makes it more palatable. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never used that. Maybe I'll have to check that out. I just put some of their tank water in a small little dish, put the pellets in it, because I feed them the pellets as well as the bok choy leaves. They go nuts for that. I mean, the Fowlery tang doesn't leave much for anyone else. He sees that dish and he goes ballistic.
Oh yeah.
It's like a Hoover vacuum. They're just gone. So I have to try that.
How big is your Fowlery tang now, Steve?
He's pretty large. I'll have to try and measure him. I don't know. He's
You know what's interesting?
Maybe 10 inches, something like that.
You know what's interesting? You'll see it looking at the description of the tang what their length can be, but of course that's their max length in the wild, and you can cut that in half and you get into a domesticated environment like an aquarium, depending how big it is. And I also think that having a good flow is inherent. You want to have good filtration for the tanks too, and I know you do, Steve. You got a good filtration set up there. I think that's important too, because they are very messy fish.
Yeah, they are.
So I think you guys are bringing up some pretty good points about size, because tangs come in some pretty big ranges in size. Little yellow tang or yellow eye coal tang, I mean, those guys will max out at 6 or 7 inches. That's kind of as big as they get. Where a Naso or like my Vlamingi, those guys can push 2 feet. They get huge. So I mean, and that's one thing you really got to think about. And the big fish grow fast. Like my Flamingi, when I got him in February, the end of February, was maybe 2.5 inches. Now he's almost as long as my blue tang, which is a 6 inch
Wow.
fish. I mean, this guy is growing so fast, it's crazy. Um, I think that's incredibly important for somebody to think about. And then it just seems like
Right.
the fish that don't get so big don't grow so fast. So that's something to really think about when you're purchasing your fish.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, unfortunately. They just see, all these little guys in the aquarium, like, oh, I want to get a blue tang. He's what, 2 inches maybe when you buy him. Oh, that fowlery looks great, or whatever. Or Tenenti tang is gorgeous. I want to get one of those
Yeah, they
eventually.
are.
It's the same
Yeah,
family as that.
that's
And I
that's
was
a
almost going to get one, but I didn't want to risk the fowlery fighting with them because they could, but whatever. My fowlery is so laid back. So I got a fox face instead, and he's very sweet. And then I pushed the edge. I was done with fish, but I saw this Nassau tang that I had to have. And then I saw the sailfin tang because I had a Destargini that died, and I loved it. And Scott just got one of those. It's gorgeous. I'm
yeah.
like, damn, I want them both. I can only have one, but I shouldn't even have one more. And I just told the guy, I'll take them both. I I put them in. And everyone's great. Everyone's awesome. But see, that's the thing. It's like you see these guys, and they're like small. You forget, like the blue tangs, if they live, they're going to be pretty big. And my fox face, that guy was maybe, almost 3 inches when I bought him. Maybe, not even, maybe 2.5, 3. That guy is huge. He's a little over 6 inches now.
Wow.
Yeah, I have
In 6 months, those guys, not even 6 months, those guys grow fast.
I have a magnificent fox face. When I first got in the hobby, he's in my 300. He was about 2.5, 3 inches, and he's pushing 7 inches now. And
Yeah,
beautiful fish.
yes,
Really nice, especially when they flare up their
Oh
dorsals.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's really nice. And I was going to say that having tags, in my opinion, and I don't think anyone will say the same thing that's watching, is that having a good diet for them is really paramount. Having a good flow system, good filtration, I think is really important as well for their health. But I'm still learning. But in my opinion, I think having a diverse diet is really important, and getting the proper nutrients to them, especially a lot of different types of vegetables, seaweed. It helps their immune system. So
So I think you make a great point with diet because tangs are at risk for hole in head and lateral line disease, which is thought to be diet related. It's not scientifically proven yet, but that's kind of what people are thinking. The other thing is, I think diet is huge for controlling aggression in tangs.
Mm.
These guys can fight, but it seems like if you feed them well, they're a lot less likely to get into it.
yeah, I agree. I agree with that, and diet is important. And I also think bolstering it with what I said before is the cell con,
Yeah.
which Cyber Aquarius turned on to me about that. And I feed it to my fish 2 or 3 times a week, and
Hmm.
they really like it. So something you might want to try, Steve.
Yeah, I think. How do you spell that?
Cellcon,
It's
S-E-L,
Cell.
S-E-L-C-O-N,
Okay.
Cellcon, and it comes in 2 different sizes.
Okay.
It's a pink bottle with a dropper.
Maybe I'll try that with the pellets.
It's
You know
it's good stuff. I like it. I use it every 2 or 3 days or so.
how Darren, you said a dropper. So what? Just in with their salt water in a dish, 2 drops, or how much are you guys dosing it?
It comes in
In the cooler.
a dropper, and I don't know what Scott's doing, but I'll take. Of course, if I'm just feeding like a flat pack food, I'll just take like one full dropper and I'll disperse it on there, let it soak in. And if you're feeding a cube food, put it so the cavity is up, facing up. There's a little indentation, and then just go ahead and I put about 2 droppers in because I'm feeding 6 or 7 cubes of mysis shrimp or brine, and it soaks it in. I let it sit there for about 10 minutes, and I'll take some RO water, with a turkey baster, and I'll put it in there, let it absorb, and then wait till it breaks apart, and then I'll just feed it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty similar to what I've been doing with the Cellcon. I just put mine right onto the frozen food, or I'll put some right onto the pellets and let it soak into the pellets. And I don't really measure it out. I just put some on until it looks like it's kind of soaking in pretty good.
Right.
Okay. That sounds
Um,
pretty good. I just want to make sure that it stays on or in the food, not when you put it in the tank, it just kind of washes away off the food, you know?
so the other thing that I think is probably pretty important to cover with tangs is going to be um, aggression and fish selection. I know this one's bit me pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a couple of tangs out there that you should probably avoid unless you really want these two fish, and those are going to be your clown tangs and your show hole tangs. They just are so violent of fish, right? So if you want to keep those guys, you're going to need a big tank, and you're just going to need to plan on it, and you're almost going to have to go species specific. It can be done, but it's definitely not something for beginners. And personally, it's just something I'm avoiding. They're really beautiful fish, but it's just they're beasts.
Yeah, of
Um,
course, Michael from Aaron's
oh
Aquarium
yeah,
has his in his system, and he's had pretty good luck with it. But of course, if you watch his videos, that soul hall tang dominates his whole
oh
tank, and
it totally does. And he also says his blue tang is the show hole's punching bag.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
So I mean, even somebody with like Michael with a massive tank, he has to really think about what he's doing, and he does a great job with it. But it's a tough fish to keep for the average person. In my opinion, they're more suited towards like big predatory tanks, like if you're going to put big groupers or something in a tank like that. Um, Other things that you got to keep in mind are the genuses of the fish, right? Once you start mixing similar looking fish or fish of the same genus, then they start to fight. That's what bit me in the past. I had a purple tang and a yellow tang in the same tank. I just had two of them. They did great for a year. Then the yellow tang snapped and started beating on the purple tang, wouldn't let him come out of the rockwork to eat. So the yellow tang has been hanging out in my sump for, I don't know, 6, 8 months now, something like that. I don't feel too bad for him. It's like an 80-gallon tank he's in. It's actually the frag tank. Got a bunch of
yeah.
coral in there, clam. He's fine. But anyways, the strategy I'm currently working on to deal with this aggression is having a lot more tangs in the tank and then a lot more zebra somas. So when this happened, it was a blue tang, a purple tang, and a yellow tang. That's all I had in the tank. I've added my yellow eye coal tang, the flamingi, the powder blue. I got the sailfin, and then at the Reef store, they've got a purple tang that they're holding for me. So it's going to be like 8 tangs in the tank. So that's the plan. We'll see if this
That's
blows up.
awesome.
But we'll see if this blows up my face, right? Theoretically, it should work. I hear about it working for people. My plan is if I have aggression, I'm just going to throw more zebra somas at the tank. If
Well, I'm
it, I
glad you're
mean,
getting all these. I'm glad you're getting all these tangs. I
yeah,
am. Because your tank, in my opinion, um, was starving for attention. It looks awesome with the rock and the coral, but you had like what, one clownfish, and that's it.
I I had plenty of fish, but I didn't have enough tangs.
No, you did not. And you know what? I'm requesting a video. Unless he's still in quarantine, I'm requesting a powder blue video from you. I want to see that fish.
Yeah, so I was gonna make that yesterday. That's a whole nother story about my
All right,
calcium reactor dying on me. But
that fish.
I spent the whole afternoon doing work on the reef instead of videoing it.
Uh,
I
that
think I
that
think
is
other
a great fish.
I think as far as what Scott was saying, getting genus specific tangs is important too. There's a couple of tangs that I would like. I would like the soul haul, but I think if I ever did get that tank, it would be the last fish I would put in there, and that's after having my tank running for a while. Another really beautiful tang is a Barini, Bariene, but it gets huge.
Yeah.
It's a really, really big tang, really colorful. But as I told you before, Steve, the Flowery is on my want list. But I would like to get some more Zebrasomas and put in there maybe another purple, a couple, two or three yellows in my 300. As far as my 180, my Reef goes, I'm going to be getting a variety of fish, and you guys will see that in my later videos. So, but I've got a trio of tangs in there right now. I'd like to get probably a couple more in there, and the three that I've got in there now are doing great. I've got a blonde meso tang, and I've got a chevron, and then I've got a powdered brown, and they're getting along. It's great.
Fantastic. I love those powder browns.
Yeah,
now,
me too.
I would just like to say I like my powder blue. He's a great fish, but those powder browns are so underrated. They don't look like much in the pictures, but when you see one in person, the colors are spectacular, and they're like half the price of a powder blue.
Yeah, really nice color. So are the white cheek tangs. Those are very underrated fish too.
Very much.
Well, they call them a gold rim naso, but those two fish are very underrated, and it's amazing on the price of the powdered brown versus the powdered blue. They're like half the price.
I would love to get a powder blue. Like, this is if I get a larger tank, like a 240.
Right.
I would love to get a powder blue, or because you guys are talking about the powder brown, because the price, and they are underrated, gorgeous. A powder brown with a Tenenti tang and a Desjardini tang would be awesome.
Now, powder blues have a reputation for aggression.
Do they?
Oh, they have a reputation for being pricks. I haven't seen it in my tank yet, but my powdered blue is like 2.5 inches. He's the little guy in the tank, and I think that might be, and at least I feel that's important with aggressive fish. Like if I was to get a show hole or something, I would start off with a small one. And let it grow up in the tank rather than taking a big fish and sticking it in.
Right.
I think you might avoid some aggression issues like that. But right now with my powder blue, completely peaceful, no issues with him. But he's also the second smallest tang in the tank. So.
Do you guys ever notice like a hierarchy between the tangs?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do. But for the most part, they all get along and they all school together, which is awesome. Once in a while, I'll see it, but not really.
My blue tang is absolutely the king of that tank, and everybody got along really well. But now that the Flamingi's getting bigger, he's getting close to the size of the blue tang. I've noticed a little bit of tail slapping going on. I'm thinking they're battling for dominance at this point. The Flamingi will absolutely be the king of that tank eventually. It's just going to get so much bigger than that blue tank. And it's all about to go to hell here in a second anyways, because once that sailfin goes in, that sailfin is so much bigger than anything else in there. That'll be interesting. Because normally I like similar size stuff in there. But this sailfin is so much bigger. If he decides he's going to be a problem, he could be a real problem. So we'll see how that works out.
Scott, when your Flamingi gets full size, you might have to donate them to your local aquarium.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I've got what I feel like is a big tank, and it's a 210-gallon tank. But that Flamingi could easily outgrow my tank. So that's actually something I may have to deal with in the future. Right now, it's not going to be a problem, but in 5-10 years, I really could be looking at something too big for a 210.
Yeah. I always said, and I would really hate to part with, say, the fowlery, and I almost did once when I had the 75-gallon. I didn't want to do it, and I've got a video on it. I took them back to the store that I bought them, and they were actually going to give me a store credit, probably because they're one of the cooler LRSs, but also he's such a gorgeous fish. And I wound up leaving the store with him in the bucket. He was chilling out, and I looked at him, and I said, here he is. He was just sitting there, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it, which is one of the biggest reasons I did break the bank a little bit, and I upgraded to the 125-gallon was for that guy. because the 75 4 feet long was just a little too small for him. He was growing, but that's what I would probably do is donate him to one of my favorite museums, the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, and let him just have full run of the large tank in the center display. Who knows how many thousands of gallons it is, but it greets you when you walk in.
That was a great aquarium. I went there 3 weeks ago when I was in Chicago.
Oh, good.
That's
I'm glad. Did you see the reef area with the sharks down below?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's kind of a hidden area. Awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? When I started thinking about getting into the hobby, it was just kind of like a thought that I toyed with, and it would just kind of haunt me every few months. Then it would go away, and then the last visit to the Shed Aquarium, I saw that whole reef display with the sharks and massive clown tank display they had. That's it. I'm getting one. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm getting one. And I went to my first LRS the next day, Sunday. But yeah, that aquarium is what did it to me. It brought me in. I'm like, that's it. Got to get into the house.
Also say that I don't know if you guys notice since you've gotten more tanks, do you find yourself doing a larger water change or a more frequent water changes, and how has your nutrient load changed?
Yes.
Your bio load as far as affecting your nitrates. Now, with myself, I don't have as many tanks as you guys do, but in my larger tank, my nutrient load hasn't been affected because I'm using the CChem nitrate test kit. Because in my opinion, the API is just an entry level, and it's still good. I'm going to use it until it expires, but there's a difference when you're testing for nitrates on an API versus a CChem. And my levels using the pond matrix and my biopellet reactor, it's cut my nitrates in half.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I just wanted to add to that. You were mentioning the pond matrix to me, and I was this close to putting it in my cart when I was on Amazon. I still probably might, but I'm just with my huge bio load with all those tangs, I think I'm going to go to a 15-gallon water change a week because my nitrates are hovering around 40. I can't get them down. That's why, Scott was telling me to just try the biopellet reactor, so I built my own. And I'm really looking forward to this kicking in. What is it, Scott? Like a month before you might start to see?
It takes like a month, yeah.
All right. So the pond matrix, you know why I didn't get it? I'm wondering if there's much difference between that and the Marine Pure block. That's why I didn't get the pond matrix, because I thought I've already got a Marine Pure block, which isn't doing much for me at all.
So I would be surprised if either the pond matrix or the Marine Pure block can do much to eliminate nitrates, because at that point you need the denitrifying bacteria, which is in anaerobic conditions and all that. Where I think the gains come in are with the biopellets, where the biopellets have actually been shown to remove the nitrates, and that's how I get away with it, right? I mean, to some extent, I have huge rocks up in my main display, right? I got one rock that's 30 pounds. I'll bet you that thing's doing a good job removing nitrates itself, because of how big and dense it is. But really, the heart of my filtration is a huge biopellet reactor and a huge skimmer.
Yeah, that's going to be key.
I kind of agree with that. I'm running the. I don't know if you know, Steve, but if Scott told you, I've got a video I put out, my stuff that I purchased a while ago, and I got the BRS, the BR140 for my 300 biopellet reactor, and I was running a Lifeguard pump, but it didn't work out, so I just invested, and I got 2 Eheim pumps, one for each tank, and it makes those biopellets really tumble really well, and that's the key. You don't want those biopellets to clump in there. You want them to tumble. It's gonna affect the bacteria differently when it's tumbling like that. But me personally, using the biopellet reactor in conjunction with the CChem pond matrix, I'm running 4 liters in there, in a open porous bag, like a cantaloupe bag, and my nitrates went way down. And
Yeah.
I have to thank Cyber Aquarius for that. That's I researched that, and I agree with him. That's really macro porous, and even more so than Marine Pure Black, even though that's a
Really?
product. Yeah.
All right. So I was thinking about taking the Marine Pure Black out of my sump. Maybe I'll do that and get some of those, and
Well,
I'll put them in my overflow.
there's nothing wrong with the Marine Pure Block. It's just, from what I've read, it's not as macroporous as the Pond Matrix. But if you've already got the Marine Pure Block in there,
Yeah.
I would let your biopellet reactor kick in for a while, like Scott
Yeah.
was saying, and see how your levels go down.
Well, I got to
And
get a stronger pump for that reactor because they're tumbling, but they're tumbling. That's all I can say. They're just they're barely, right? I got to get a stronger pump.
Yeah, I can tell you my biopellet reactor, I'm running like a full, I just added a full liter bag yesterday to it of biopellets. There's probably half a liter maybe in there. So I got like a liter and a half, and I'm running that right off my return pump, which is a big old reflow hammerhead pump. So
Hmm.
I've got loads of power behind that thing. I've got it turned down quite a bit, and it still tumbles great. But yeah, I recommend a huge pump for biopellets. I know we're kind of getting off subject on the tangs a little bit, but it's really important to remember your water chemistry with tangs because they are just such dirty fish.
Right,
I mean, a tank full of chromies isn't going to put out too much waste. A tank
right.
full of tangs is a lot of waste.
Yeah, especially for my size tank. So I have to do more cleaning and housekeeping than you guys.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm doing everything I can.
That's all you can
And
do.
the nitrates are still pegged at like 40. I cannot get beneath that unless I do sugar dosing. So, as I talked about on the live show last night, you got to get to the source of the problem, the sugar dosing, or even the biopellet reactor. Um, I don't want to say they band-aid the problem, but if we didn't have high nitrates, we wouldn't need biopellet
Well,
reactors, right? I'm not
here's
saying they're bad. I'm just saying that if I didn't have a high bio load, if I had the one fowlery
right.
tang and a pair of clowns and a goby, I wouldn't have this issue, you
But I
know.
mean, but I don't look at it as banding the problem. I look at it as supercharging your tank, right?
No, I
If you
agree,
if
yeah.
you're if you I know I don't know if you guys remember 10 years ago in the hobby before all the carbon dosing and all that stuff was big. You'd have a tank with like two clownfish. A reef tank was like two clownfish and a yellow tang.
Yeah, right.
Beyond that, I mean, your nitrates would go out of control, your coral would start to die. People would do massive water changes trying to keep everything under control. Where now with the carbon dosing, I'm got a big stock list compared to what we used to do, and my nitrates are undetectable.
I think um, if you're running a fish only tank, 30 to 40 ppm, it's not really going to harm the
No,
fish, but as far as going into corals, yes, and that's
yeah,
something I'm venturing into. But I don't think, Steve, if you're running 40 parts per million on your tank, it's kind of a level where you're kind of a borderline, I would say. But I never had any problems, when I had my 300 at about 40 parts per million. But I certainly like it now. It's lower. So, but
These are all great points. I was looking up something on the phone on, I can't find it.
But I just think that for tangs, having a nutrient load lower is kind of paramount, because I
You're
think
right.
watching this
right.
video as a bunch of different tangs will probably agree that having a good filtration and keeping your nutrient load down is pretty important, as well as a good diet. But I just wanted to ask you guys your experiences since you've got
Right.
multiple tanks in your tanks.
Well, it's counterintuitive, right? Because we're telling people to avoid aggression, heavily feed your fish, and then we're telling them to keep their nitrates low.
Right.
It's the exact opposite of how it should work.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. That's why I swear by the carbon dosing. Is I think that's what's made my system successful. I just don't have nitrate issues.
Yeah, you're lucky.
I mean,
But then again, you've got a
maybe in
sweet
5 years
tank.
I will, but for
You
now,
have tons of rock that look awesome. Awesome aquascape. Um,
Yeah,
Large tank, 210 gallons. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. In my 300, I'm running over 200 pounds of rock in there,
yeah.
and about the same amount in my reef tank that I'm going. It's constantly going right now. That I'm going to be getting coral in here in a couple weeks. But I think that's a benefit for you, Scott, is having probably in excess of 200 pounds of live rock, and
oh yeah,
you've got nitrifying bacteria that's going to be right on those rocks. So
right.
so it's really great.
So I've got loads of nitrifying bacteria, and I'd be willing to bet because some of those rocks are so big that I'm actually getting denitrifying bacteria deep inside.
Right.
I can't guarantee it, but that's how it's supposed to work.
And that's why I went with the Marine Pure, because not the Marine Pure biospheres, but the
big
block, because
yeah.
it's thicker, and that's where the anaerobic bacteria will live because there's less oxygen levels. It doesn't matter if it's in your sump or in your tank. I thought about moving it to my tank, see, because as you guys know, I don't have much rock work. I just have a decent amount of rock work as a showpiece to make my tank look artsy. Because I have so many tanks, as Scott said, I got these tanks with, keeping in mind I'm going to have tanks. Much less rock work, because if I had really nice rock work like Scott, my tanks wouldn't have anywhere to swim.
Right.
So my tank is mostly empty. They're not stacked higher than maybe, 7 inches tall. So they can swim way above and around and everything. So that's why I need a Marine Pure block to keep everything in check. Or the Pond Matrix, which I'll look into as well. I'll add that too.
Your rock also serves another purpose, right? Your fish do a lot better if they have a place to hide. They're a lot less stressed if they have the rock that they can swim into. So you don't want to go rockless on your tank. You need to provide at least enough holes and caves for them to get in and hide. And especially blue tangs, they like a crevice that they can actually jam themselves into and sleep at night. So that's just a nice thing to think about when you're doing your aquascape for your tanks, is provide lots of caves and stuff for these fish to be in. It's counterintuitive, but the more places you give your fish to hide, the more they'll come out.
I agree with that. I feel that they have a kind of a safe haven to go into. It makes them feel better. I'll look into my tank at night and get some ambient light in the background, but the only tang I see out swimming is my orange shoulderback. All the other tangs, the other 3 tangs, you don't see them until the next day. They wedge themselves in between rocks. And what I did on mine is I created the escaping into 2 different formations. So I've got room off the back of the wall and the rock work, so the fish can essentially kind of do laps back there.
Yep, that's right. That's what my guys do too. My rock is just kind of in the center, and they can go around and above and through. Yep.
Right.
Plus, it helps with the water flow too. You don't want to get anything trapped in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like I agree with Scott. It does provide a safe haven for them to swim into and feel less stressed.
I suspect psychologically what you guys are doing with the rock probably makes the tank feel bigger for fish anyways, because there's 2 long sections that they can kind of swim around.
Right. That's exactly right. If I didn't have tangs, I'd have more rock like you, Scott, because that looks awesome. It makes it look more like a reef in a way, because you've got hiding places, and it just looks cool.
Well, the other difference is my tank is meant to be seen just from the front, where your tank you want to see from both sides, which makes stacking the rock a lot harder, especially with a narrower tank. Right.
That's right. And when I had to remove all that rock to get that starry blenny out, it was a pain. I had to remove all the rock, and then it took maybe an hour and a half to try and find a way to stack it back, because it's like a puzzle. What goes with what? And now what looks cool? No, that looks like I just have a pile of rocks. Let me restack it. Now it looks awesome. So it's more difficult in that sense. But plus I was going for more artistic approach, and more importantly, swimming space for these tangs, you know. And you know what? I have to go now because I have stuff going on. I got to see a guy about a thing over at the place. But so I'm gonna sign out. You guys feel free to keep going, of course. You know.
I think this is a good place to cut it.
Yeah.
What I think we're gonna do, if you're okay with this, Steve, I think we just do one long episode this Sunday. We'll skip next weekend. So sorry, guys, no episode next weekend.
Well, I've got older shows that we haven't uploaded. I've got like a few, like three. So I'll do that and I'll send it to you then.
Okay, let's do that then.
Okay. So yes, but you know what? I'm gonna tell you guys, Darren, thank you so much for being on.
Yes.
Always awesome.
You're welcome.
And you guys, if you want to be on Reef Talk, send us an instant message on our channels, RodderTube Reef, Mile High Reefers, or email us at reeftalkshow@gmail.com. We'll put it up here and in this description below. I need more sleep. But thank you so much. If you have any comments or questions, subscribe to our channels, comment, ask questions below, help each other out. And, you know, good luck with your tangs. They're gorgeous fish. We highly recommend them. Just have to put a little more care into those guys because they are, as all saltwater creatures, fragile, but these guys a little more so.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on the show. It's been nice.
Yeah, and I
check
want to
out
say
Darren's channel as well. A link to
Exactly.
Darren's channel will be in the description below.
That's what I wanted to say. Seems like every few weeks Darren puts a video out and my jaw drops at what he just bought. So
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to build the collection up slowly, but as you guys know, there's some fish that you want to get, and you know, next thing you know, they're in your tank.
Yep.
All right,
That's
guys.
right.
Thanks
For watching. We'll see you guys next weekend.
Take care.
Cool. Stop the recording here.